Welcome to the Salem Area Mass Transit District Board of Directors meeting for April 22nd, 2014. It's nice to be back in our home where we belong, and it feels real good to be back here. Tonight we have first reading of our ordinance 14-01, which is a district police ordinance. We will have a period of public comment, then we'll approve the consent calendar, which contains minutes from some of our previous meetings. We have two action items tonight. One is the appointment of a specialized transportation advisory committee members and a resolution to support the Salem River crossing policy. We have one information item tonight, a state legislative report, as well as we'll conclude with various reports. So we'll start the meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. And Linda, please note attendance. And tonight our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Kate Tarter.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thanks, Kate. Any announcements or changes to the agenda? Okay, our first item tonight is first reading of ordinance 14-01.
Karen Garcia, our security coordinator, will present the staff report.
Good evening, President Thompson and members of the board. Tonight we'll hear the first reading of ordinance 2014-01 by title only, proposed to amend ordinance 2004-01 as amended by ordinance 2004 number 3, the Courthouse Square Police Ordinance. In the year 2000, the board adopted ordinance to govern the actions and behaviors on district facilities and in district buses related to behaviors of our customers and the use of the facilities in providing remedies for violations of those problems. The ordinances have been used to facilitate the purposes set forth in the ORS Chapter 267 for safety, convenience, and comfort of district passengers, and for the protection, preservation, use, and enjoyment of district property, which includes the Courthouse Square Transit Mall. This is known as the Police Ordinance. It's number 2000-01, and it's been amended on a number of occasions. In 2001, number 1, 2002, number 1, 2003, number 1, and 2004, number 2. In 2004, the board adopted the Courthouse Square Police Ordinance to establish rules and regulations that were specific to the common areas of the Courthouse Square block on Hatfield Plaza and the North Block. This ordinance has been amended once with Ordinance 2004-03. In certain cases, the ordinance enforcement regarding specific behavior were allowed in one area, such as the Hatfield Plaza and North Block, but were not allowed in other areas, such as the Transit Mall. The challenge for the police department and our staff is that we have to establish clear directives for behavior for our passengers. And that includes all areas of the Transit Mall, North Block, and the Hatfield Plaza. There are no proposed changes to the 2000-01 police ordinance, but we are proposing an amendment to the 2014 Courthouse Square Police Ordinance. The purpose of the proposal is to provide congruence for the police ordinances and the rules and regulations for the Transit Mall and for the common areas on the courthouse block. The proposal includes a change to section 1.10. This is to define, correct a definition in the original 0401 ordinance to include the whole name of Salem Area Mass Transit District. Previously it said Salem Area Transit District, so that's just a language correction. The next changes are in section 2, which is directly related to behavior. Section 2.4 would be included to state smoking. No person shall smoke tobacco or any other substance or shall carry any lighted or smoldering substance in any form in any part of the North Block or in any area designated as a non-smoking area. The other addition that we're proposing for section 2.5 is related to safety. No person shall ride a skateboard or roller skates in any part of the North Block or ride a bicycle in any part of the North Block except a peace officer or district security officer in the performance of their duties. The final proposed change is an administrative correction. We're reserving section 3 that had been skipped in the original ordinance. So the proposed ordinance has been vetted through the police department with Marion County staff and with district staff, including our G4S security. We hope that this will allow us to have consistent administration of appropriate behaviors in all areas of the courthouse block. This was addressed and brought forward to you in an introduction during the work session in March. So the recommendation is that the board hears the first reading of ordinance 2014-01 by title only, recognizing the need for consistency of behavior throughout the transit mall complex to facilitate the safety of transit passengers and all members of the general public. The second reading of ordinance 2014-01 is scheduled for the May 22nd, 2014 board meeting. The ordinance would become effective 30 days after adoption. It's also recommended that the board secretary certify a compilation of the Courthouse Square Police Ordinance and its approved amendments to assist in communicating adopted ordinance language with members of the public.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Are there questions? Let's do the motion first.
I move that ordinance 2014-01 be read by title only.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Now time for discussion. Brad, you had something?
Yeah, I have a question. And this, I know that in the downtown Salem area, the city of Salem has an ordinance saying the very similar language about no one riding a bicycle except for a peace officer in performance of their duty. As a commuter on my bike, I actually walk my bike on the sidewalk, but have seen police officers riding their bikes on the sidewalk. And, you know, I recognize that they're allowed to, right? If I didn't know about this ordinance and all I knew is that I couldn't do it, it would seem that unless they were actually pursuing someone, or if it was clear why they were on their bike versus just, you know, taking advantage of the fact that they can do it and no one else can. I guess I'm curious if in this ordinance in the North Block, if the security officers are also going to avoid riding their bikes unless it was necessary unless it was clear in the eyes of the public why they were on their bike. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think that it does. At this time, the G4S and district security staff, there's no plan to have them have bicycles to assist with their patrols. They do it all on foot. As far as the Salem police officers, we have a contract with them to assist us in enforcing our ordinances on district property and at the transit mall. But I can't really speak to what their directives are as far as riding those bicycles in the area of the downtown where it is not permitted for other folks.
Okay, I would just like to encourage for the opportunity to be a good example that any security officers or police officers that you know, encourage them to use that privilege wisely. So, thank you.
Yeah, they are permitted to do that under city ordinance, so there's no, anywhere in the city.
I know, I think what Brad is saying is
I
that
understand.
it gets confusing for people, and that maybe only if they're really pursuing somebody, could they not, you know, like if they're just going to get a cup of coffee, then they should probably walk their bike or something, but we can't tell the police what.
It's not in our purview to do that.
I,
Ben, did you have something? Not yet? Any other questions, comments? Yes, Marcia. It's hard to see.
I know, I'm right in your blind spot, so I'll just start tugging your hair. I have a question whether lighted or smoldering substances cover electronic cigarettes?
They do not, and part of the reason that we chose not to move forward with that as a change in the Courthouse Square ordinance at this time is because the goal is to provide consistency. So when we are prepared with the proper language to include the e-cigarettes as part of our ordinance, we would want to make that change in the Courthouse Square ordinance as well as the regular police ordinance simultaneously.
The FDA today just announced that they're going to be making regulations concerning e-cigarettes. And so it,
Want us to be a trendsetter?
well, not only a trendsetter, but I think that, there's a controversy out there, but nicotine in any form is pretty addictive, so.
I think that it will be helpful to have some more formalized language for us to refer to. It's addressed pretty sparsely around there at this point, and we are taking it under consideration, and there is a lot of discussion, and there will be further discussion. Thank you.
It's also consideration of the other passengers rather than.
Absolutely.
So one other question, if our security officers don't ride bikes, and if our ordinances don't apply to the Salem police, do we need to specify that police officers can ride bikes on the north block? Or what's the thought behind having that in there?
I think I need to clarify my comment. When I said that our security officers don't ride bicycles, I was referring to myself as a district employee and the G4S staff that are contracted to provide security services. The police officers of the downtown enforcement team, they do ride bicycles in their job. And they are the ones that we're contracted with to provide services from Salem Police Department.
Steve?
Will this be open to, will this be open to a public hearing at the second reading?
It is not,
I believe that we're open for public comments this evening.
This
That was
evening?
my understanding.
this ordinance has been noticed, it'll be noticed again the second ordinance.
Okay,
There isn't necessarily a public hearing with it, but when we notice the ordinance, that takes the place of it.
okay. Will there be time for public input tonight?
Second read, yes, tonight.
Tonight?
There is tonight, and there will be next month also.
When can that occur?
Well, it should have occurred, it'll occur during public comment.
And that's already happened.
Not yet.
Oh, not yet.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, because there's somebody who keeps raising their hand out there.
Ben has clarification for this ordinance.
I had something when we get to the point in time when you're ready to read the ballot title itself. I apologize, I didn't catch this earlier, but the proposed reading of the ballot title in the shaded box of the proposed motion, I'd like to make a change to that and read the title as it should be read.
So what we should be reading is Courthouse Square Police Ordinance? No.
When you get to the point where the ballot title's ready to be read, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, gotcha. Other questions? Comments? Okay, are we ready for a vote? Okay. Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Same sign. Okay, next.
Now we're at the point of reading the ordinance title.
Okay, the ordinance title is Salem Area Mass Transit District Ordinance 2014-01, amending Ordinance 2004-01, as amended by Ordinance 2004-03, Courthouse Square Police Ordinance.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. So we've already done it by title, and we're done.
I was just going to read.
Oh, you're going to read it.
I would have read it wrong.
Ben, well, Ben did good, yeah. Okay, thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're on public comment.
Okay, public comment is our next issue. What we have is you're allowed 3 minutes, and step up to the microphone when your name's called, and we'll go from there. Now, we have one person on the list. If anyone else wants to be on the list, we'll give you an opportunity afterwards. First on the list is Dakota Saunders. And we have your address and everything, so just identify yourself.
Good evening, Mr. Thompson, members of the board. Unfortunately, Mr. Evans, I don't know enough about the measure to comment for you, but I would like to say, as a lifelong Chariots rider, I would say I am considerably happy with the way that the service has been operating, albeit in its limited capacity, for 6 years. That's how long I've been riding, and I feel that I know times are tough, and I understand the sacrifices that needed to be made. After having a very good discussion with Director Coy and understanding the proposals and how the work is done, I would say that I have the utmost confidence and respect in all of you. You are, in my opinion, 100% doing your jobs, and I would say that I truly appreciate your work and I appreciate your service as you've done it. And as I told Mr. Coy, if there's any volunteer opportunities to help the transit service, I would greatly welcome the chance to participate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's rather unusual to have that kind of comment. It feels kind of good. Thank you, Dakota. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak?
Do you mind if I make a comment?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
I just want to mention that I had a great conversation with Dakota earlier, and he was mentioning the desire to have Saturday service back and how valuable that would be to him and to the community.
And I think you got all of us in favor of that also up here. Anyone else have a comment? Anyone else out there have a comment? Go ahead, go up to the microphone there and give us your name, and we don't have your address, so maybe give us your address.
My address is 1805 Evergreen Avenue. 1805 Evergreen Avenue, Northeast, Salem, Oregon, 97301.
And your name?
My name is Robert Kerr,
Kerr?
Kerr.
Go ahead.
I'm also consider you doing a very good job, all of you. And I'd like to make a few comments. The floor is a little slippery when it's wet. And that might be an improvement.
In the bus?
In the bus, yes. There's air that comes in through the doorway, and it makes it a little uncomfortable sometimes. Maybe we could put a door somewhere in there. And the top of the roller thing, if we had a bigger screen of where all the names of the streets are, that would be an improvement too. I'm just trying to make improvements. I know we're short on money, but I'm just trying to give improvement things that could be improved. Thank you.
Appreciate Is there a question on, I'm sorry?
Is it on the lobby or
In the bus?
or no? I think
You, speaking of the bus or the lobby, you're talking about the bus, right? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar.
If I have an amendment, do I make that after the motion?
If you want something removed, we can remove it and then discuss it if that's.
Oh, it's more, I was just reading through the minutes, and there was just a small typo that,
If it's just a typo, it doesn't impact anything.
no.
Ben, can he just have Linda fix it?
Well, the correct procedure is to pull it from the consent agenda, deliberate on it, amend it, and then pass it as amended.
So which one do you want to pull?
Let's see, I should see exactly which one that is. Sorry about that, I should have looked to see exact which. It was,
That's what,
It's that one. I found it. It is the 703, March 27th. And it has Lynn County, but it should be Lane County. Very minor, but
so,
here. That is page 16 under K.3, second paragraph.
to have that from the consent calendar.
So, yeah, Lane County, not Lynn County.
Yes. So, okay, I will move that we pull the minutes of the regular meeting on March 27th from the consent calendar. We don't need a motion.
It's
Okay.
done.
So it's done, okay.
So
Then I will
consent,
move the consent calendar.
containing item B, 1B. Okay. Is there a motion on the 1B?
A second, we're looking for a second, I moved.
I'll
Oh, yeah.
second that.
Is there a second? Okay,
I-
there's
I'll
a second.
second.
We'll get it right here, sooner or later, maybe. It's the ambiance. Okay, all those in favor of the consent calendar less item A indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, now we'll address regular meeting minutes of March 27th. And what's your,
I make a motion, I move that we approve minutes from the March 27th, 2014 board meeting as amended.
and you got the amendment, Linda?
When you say,
I'll second.
as amended with Lynn changed to Lane under K.3, second paragraph.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Got carried all the way down to H now. Appointment of STF Advisory Committee members.
Ted Stonecliffe, our long-range planning analyst, will present the staff report.
Evening, President Thompson and distinguished members. Tonight, I have 2 applications for membership to the STF Advisory Committee for you. Both applicants have filled their applications out February and March, and normally we would take these applications to the advisory committee first, and they would recommend their membership to you. However, due to timing constraints, we're taking it directly to the board because we have some additional funding that came from the Oregon State Legislature for the STF Advisory Committee to consider at their meeting on Monday, April 28th, and we want to be sure that there's a quorum and enough membership for that to be considered. Both applicants will be filling vacant, unexpired terms and will be eligible to complete 2 full 3-year terms upon completion of the unexpired term. Dennis Gibson, and I'm not sure if he's here tonight, is he? There's Dennis. He will be applying to fill vacant position number 1. He's currently retired and has his own internet business. He has extensive work and community service experience serving seniors and disabled people. He is a former civil service employee in California where he worked as a health facility inspector, primarily nursing facilities, in the hospitality business as a hotel manager, and as an insurance salesman and manager. He has served as a volunteer medical transport driver for 5 years and wishes to see that the City of Woodburn receives consideration on grants aimed at seniors and the disabled. Dennis is the former Lieutenant Governor of Kiwanis International, where he was an ambassador with the Woodburn Area Chamber of Commerce. And our second candidate, I don't believe is here. Diane Lace is applying to fill vacant position number 4. She is currently the Associate Director of Housing and Development for Catholic Community Services. She has a strong desire to advocate for seniors and people with disabilities and wants to be in a position that can voice the concerns of people who depend on transportation services throughout the city and surrounding areas. She currently serves on Salem's Housing and Needs and Equal Opportunity Analysis Advisory Committee, that's a mouthful, which connects the Oregon Transportation and Growth Plan. Staff recommends that the board appoint Dennis Gibson to fill the unexpired term of position number 1 beginning April 28th, 2014 and ending on December 31st, 2014. Diane Lace to fill the unexpired term of position number 4 beginning April 28th, 2014 and ending on December 31st, 2015. At this time, I could take any questions if you have any.
I have a question. It's not really related to the membership, but about the committee itself. Was at a meeting today, and a lot of people that use carts in Polk County wanted to know how they could advocate for transportation carts and or other. I'm not sure if that's the only group, because obviously if they want more than carts, maybe they should be talking to the city council or other reps. So where would you direct somebody that has an interest in getting more transportation provided in their area?
Certainly, the STF Advisory Committee can take on mainly the issues of transportation for seniors and the disabled. If they're looking for more commuter service and that kind of thing, perhaps that would be more appropriate for the general board and for our Transportation Development Division. You could put them in contact with me or Steve Dickey.
I think that would be a good way to start, because the clients they are serving have disabilities, but they're obviously, one of their concern, or I won't say complaint, but is that the people that are trying to use carts in the area to get to work had a really long way to go, and they just want to go from Dallas to Monmouth. So I think maybe they just wanted to know ways that they could advocate in their area. So if I have them copy you and Steve and let them get in touch with you, you could sort out their issues and where they can direct their concerns.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ted. Okay, do we have a motion?
I move that the board appoint Dennis Gibson to fill the unexpired term of position 1, beginning April 28th, 2014 and ending on December 31st, 2014, and Diane Lace to fill the unexpired term of position number 4, beginning April 28th, 2014 and ending on December 31st, 2015.
I'll second that.
Moved in second. Is there any discussion? I might point out that we do have one vacancy yet, and that's in Polk County. And it's for a disabled representative. So if you know of somebody in Polk County, we'd love to.
I think I'm going to refer the
from them.
people I was talking about, so I'll definitely put them in touch, because that's what they wanted.
Get a hold of Ted. Okay, are we? Yes.
If I want to just say thank you to Dennis for volunteering to serve. It's a pleasure to have volunteers from the community help us out, so thank you.
Dennis, do you want to come up and speak to us a little bit? Let us know what you're thinking.
Express the importance of having special transportation for people that need it. I'm a medical volunteer driver, which means I use my own car. I left for a period of time to go down to Oak Ridge, Oregon, where I was a ride source driver. And we drove their vans that could accommodate people that were restricted to wheelchairs. So because of in Woodburn in particular, we have a high incident of seniors up there, as probably there are throughout Marion County. So it's a good service, and I appreciate being of service to the seniors. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dennis. Look forward to seeing you Okay, are we ready for a vote? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. The next one is the Resolution 2014-3 River Crossing Policy Revision.
Ted, Steve Dickey will present the staff report. And I would note that at your tables, there's a supplemental packet of several emails that were received this morning concerning this action item.
Good
You
evening.
also received those on your emails at home, so you probably read them already.
Good evening, President Thompson, members of the board. Before I get into the primary portion of my staff report, I'd like to provide a little bit more background information, especially in regard to the emails that we have received. The Salem River Crossing project process has now been underway for many years, and if you've been involved with it, it has been a very long time. In fact, it was in progress for a number of years, even prior to us leaving where we just came back to tonight. So it's been underway for quite some time. During that time, the alternatives, including a no-build option and an alternative mode study, have been considered. And the process has included the work of not only the Salem River Crossing Oversight Team of elected officials and their committee, but also the work of the Salem River Crossing Task Force, made up of local agency staff and local citizen members. Many meetings were held, extensive discussions took place, public input was received, and the process ultimately resulted in the recommendation for the alternative known as 4D. Due to the process, 4D has not been eliminated as an option to this point. Excuse me. However, 4D by design is focused on moving high volumes of traffic between I-5 and Oregon Highway 22 West. The 4D design had significant impact on neighborhoods, businesses, and did little to connect with the community in general. When these impacts were considered by the Salem City Council, they worked with the City of Salem staff to propose an alternative that is now known as the Salem Alternative. The Salem Alternative would reduce the impact on neighborhoods, businesses, and allow the new bridge to serve both the need to move traffic through Salem and create a more direct connections between neighborhoods on both sides of the Willamette River. Some have questioned why we as a district would support such an alternative. The simple answer would be for two reasons. The first reason being the reduced impact on the community, and the second being the improved access between the east and west sides of Salem. It is true that we need to move our transit system to efficiently serve our community, and we need to do things like bring back Saturday service and work towards later evening service and better coverage. However, one of the biggest challenges to that is in designing a system that operates efficiently is the design of the road system. And currently in Salem, we have a very big obstacle caused by there being only one location between east and west Salem to cross the Willamette River. And to serve all of Salem, we have to always go downtown to get to one side or the other. The addition of another bridge would help us provide more flexibility in service design and operations. Others have been concerned that the purpose of the resolution under consideration tonight is a weaker statement and is not strong enough to make a difference on behalf of transit. While we may agree on this matter, the process involves many jurisdictions and is ultimately based on a full consensus decision-making process. As you may remember, the board approved a motion on June 27, 2013 to send a letter to the Salem River Crossing Oversight Team supporting the inclusion of infrastructure related to public transportation supportive amenities. These included park and ride lots, a transit center, bus queue, jump lanes, and a transit signal priority. The letter that you have in attachment A was sent to the Salem River Crossing Oversight Team on July 15, 2013. The letter, however, did not express the board's position on the Salem alternative that was currently under consideration by the Salem Oversight Team. It was determined at that meeting that the Salem alternative would provide greater flexibility in service planning for the district than the original option 4D. by adopting Resolution 2014-01, which you have in Attachment B. At the January 13th, 2014 board meeting, with the addition of a policy statement that you have in Attachment C, supporting the request made in the July 15th, 2013 letter. The board provided a formal statement of support for the Salem alternative while expressing a clear expectation that public transportation supportive design elements would be included as a part of the project and be added to the oversight team policy statements. However, when the letter that you have and the policy statement were presented to the Salem River Crossing Oversight Team, a clear level of concern was expressed by some members of the oversight team. As a result, the oversight team has requested a revision be made to the policy statement submitted for inclusion by the Salem-Keizer Transit. They would prefer to have language that, in their perception, would be less prescriptive in nature and would allow for a greater level of discretion throughout the design process. And remembering that this is a full consensus process, they chose not to accept the language at the last meeting. So recommended language below in your packet was discussed at the April 14th, 2014 board work session. As a result, a revised resolution, Attachment D, is being presented for adoption at the board's meeting tonight and will be submitted to the Salem River Crossing Oversight Team. The change, and I'll read what we had before in the policy statement. We have no change recommended in our support of the Salem River Crossing, but the portion that changed is previously we had that the following statement be added to the oversight team policy statements. Public transportation supportive amenities such as bus stops, park and ride lots, transit centers, bus queue jump lanes, and transit signal priority will be included as an integral part of the design of the project. What we are recommending in the resolution tonight is that paragraph be reworded to state that the following statement be added to the oversight team policy statements. In order to avoid additional costs and design conflicts, bus stop locations and construction shall be coordinated with Salem-Keizer Transit. In addition, other transportation supportive amenities such as park and ride lots, transit centers, bus queue jump lanes, and transit signal priority will be considered as part of the design of the project. So staff recommends that the board adopt Resolution 2014-03, rescinding Resolution 2014-01, revising the board Salem River Crossing policy statement.
I move the board adopt Resolution 2014-03, rescinding Resolution 2014-01, revising the Salem River Crossing policy statement. And for the public out there, one word was left out in your reading of the second ordinance. And so, in addition, other public transportation supportive amenities, you just accidentally passed over the public transportation. So it is included in there as public transportation. Supportive amenities.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay. Discussion, questions? Kate.
I'll just give the comment because John Gear stopped me today. I ran into him and he really was adamant. I know that he wrote in, he was very adamant that he felt the board should be changed in the statement from should be considered to will be considered. And so I'm just carrying the message. And I think there is an impact if we don't submit this on time. So I'm just speaking out for John because he wanted to make sure that was heard.
Brad?
So I saw a lot of the emails as well. And it was my understanding that the language here will ensure that the design, as the bridge is being designed, that transit will be considered, that Salem-Keizer Transit District will be at the table to coordinate, and that transit amenities will not be an afterthought, but will be an important part and not easily dismissed. Is this policy going to cover our bases to ensure that that is the case?
The policy statement will be submitted to the oversight team. The oversight team still has the discretion to either accept or reject this as part of the policy statement. I can tell you, though, as a matter of practice, we have already been at one of the design meetings with the technical staff from ODOT and their consultants, which was focused primarily on bicycle and pedestrian elements within the project. They are scheduling another meeting, which we will be part of, that is going to focus primarily on public transportation elements within the project, and gave us clear indication that they intend to keep us as an active part of that process.
Sounds like as much as we can hope for.
Marcia's next.
Well, why don't you let Steve too?
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that ODOT's heading this up. I live in West Salem, and Eola was recently redone, and if you drive up it, even though we brought up the fact that they need to plan for additional service in the future, very little was done to accommodate that, even though it was brought up over and over again in the neighborhood association. And so if you leave, this is I don't have to run for a city office, so I can say this. If you leave it to the city to do it and they take the lead, it may not get done. I have more confidence in ODOT's planning than the current way it's done at the city. I know we sometimes hear after the fact that we can't put a shelter somewhere because of for city reasons, and it was because they didn't plan ahead for what could happen. There's some great pull-offs with no bus service in these pull-offs, and there's places where there's bus service with no pull-off. So I think it's really important that we be at the table, especially for the West Salem side of it, where it's going to impact many streets. Thank you.
I agree with Steve that we need to be at the table, and we have been at the table, and it is a long process. And sitting on the Area Commission on Transportation and knowing the needs of the three areas that we share funding with, it's going to be a long time before there might ever be fruition of this project. There's still is the Newburgh-Dundee that is just starting in construction. I started with MWAC in 1996, and that was the first project that we discussed, and now the first phase of it is finally happening, which is almost 20 years later. So I think that there's a lot more to go before there's actual bridge there, because nothing will get approved unless there's a funding source, and that has not happened yet. So stay tuned, but keep on having your public input, because it's important for us to have that public input.
Yeah. As Marcia said, funding is what makes it happen, and I know this is very far down the road, so it's hard for you to speak to it, but I would assume when we said that we want them to consider, obviously, if we're able to be aware of funding opportunities to make transit be a part of that, that would be part of our making things aware to them as far as for consideration. You know, us being active and saying, here's some fundings you should be aware of and potential opportunities, correct?
Those are questions that we will have to answer when we get to that phase of the project. There are many variables involved with that, and so at this stage, the purpose of this is just to make sure that we are involved at this stage of the process. The other thing to understand is that the level of design that we are at this point is very high level. So it is looking at making sure that some of the early pieces are in place, so that when we do get to those more detailed levels of design, that's not when we're now trying to insert this into the process. We're trying to set the tone so that it is, that our pieces are an integral part of that, even though they didn't necessarily like that particular word.
And it is a consensus organization, and we have one vote in that consensus, so.
By the word of consensus is not really a vote, but yes.
No, it's not.
But the whole funding issue is the 500, let's see, what is it, 500 million
$500
gorilla?
million question.
Yes, and it's been 20 years trying to do portions of Newburgh-Dundee, and that's only a $200 million project. So,
Brad has another one.
In your statement, in your staff report, Steve, I appreciate you referencing the Salem-Willamette River Crossing alternate mode study, which I looked through that today too, and I just wanted to point out some of the things that it says. So first of all, it includes a variety of project recommendations to decrease single occupancy vehicle travel across the Willamette River. It was funded by ODOT and was jointly led by the City of Salem, ODOT, the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, and Salem-Keizer Transit District. And one of the things that it says, by commissioning this study, the Salem River Crossing Project Oversight Team has determined that improving alternate modes of transportation in Salem can help accommodate future travel demand across the river. And it says, let's see, investing in the projects described in the study can benefit the City of Salem and residents of Marion and Polk counties and those just traveling through the area by increasing the travel options available to commuters, reducing peak hour SOV demand across the river, extending the service life of any potential future Salem River crossing improvements, and reducing congestion. And it also says, specifically the recommendations in this study were assessed for their potential to help reduce peak hour single occupancy vehicle travel across the Willamette River by 8% or more by the year 2031. And there was one part in particular that says, in order to assure that the roadway improvement alternatives are not over-designed, this reduction in peak hour travel demand is already assumed in the Salem DEIS traffic model. If the recommendations in this study are not implemented, the forecasted operational performance of the improvement alternatives in the Salem River Crossing project will be reduced. So I just want to emphasize that the things that we're asking them to consider are already accounted for in all of their analysis. And it seems important for them to realize that and to remember that it's not asking for something in addition to what already was assumed.
Okay, Alan has a comment.
I just have two comments. One, I think we all fully recognize that public transportation is part of the solution of the third bridge, not the only solution, but part of it. And secondly, that with the alt-mode study, there's two pieces to that. There's the operational portion, which really becomes our responsibility, and the infrastructure portions of it, which is what we're attempting to work on as part of this policy statement. From the staff perspective, we will continue to make sure the technical process gets public transportation involved, but really, and it's unfortunate that Director Krebs couldn't be here tonight because he's our voice at the Oversight Committee and really ensuring, and we'll be working with him to keep him updated so he can keep it top of mind because it can easily slip away unless we have that champion continually talking about how public transportation is going to be a part of the solution.
Okay, are we ready for a vote? So,
I guess the one thing that I want to say is right now we don't have any policy statement. So if we can get a policy statement in there that recognizes transit, it'll be better than where we're at now. While it's not where we want to be, and ideally where we want to be is that transit is considered. Doesn't mean you always have to do everything. It just means that you don't have it be an afterthought. That's what we want. And so I feel like this statement is important, and hopefully this language will allow it to be better than it is. And is there any change you needed, Director Tarter, or does it have, you mentioned that one of the persons you talked with.
Yeah, I talked to John, and his recommendation for change in wording would be, instead of saying should be considered, will be considered, but it's my understanding if we do that,
It does say will be considered though, doesn't it?
It does. It says will be considered.
Okay. So that's what his concern was.
Okay, well said, Brad, thank you. Okay, seeing no one else raising their hand, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Great. Now we move to thanks, Steve. Now we move to information items, CFM State Legislative Report.
Yes, I'll provide the staff report. As you know, not too long ago, the state completed their 2014 legislative session. It was their short session, and that we have engaged CFM to assist us with legislative advocacy. What you have in your packet tonight is a copy of their report on the 2014 session. I'd just like to hit a couple of the highlights, and then I'll walk through it. As you see in the staff report, 3 key items, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on other ones, but the 3 key items for us is that bonding capacity was maintained, even though there was pressure on additional bonding capacity for our $3.5 million bonding commitment for Courthouse Square project. I can tell you, I did sign that agreement and with ODOT, and ODOT's now reviewing it, so all systems are moving forward on that. I think I've previously reported the legislature did allocate an additional $4 million for senior and disabled transit during the session. Our share of that $4 million through the formula comes to about $337,000, which you'll be taking action on in subsequent months. It has to do with what Ted Stonecliffe reported about the SDF Advisory Committee. They're meeting Monday to make recommendations, I believe, on that. And also HB 4086A, Mass Transit Record Exemption. This was really a bill that TriMet took the initiative on. It's to protect disclosure. I'll go into that more in a second. But those are the 3 highlights. I would add that I did mention in a previous weekly report that Jessica Adamson, our representative from CFM, has resigned and taken another job. And it was reported yesterday, her replacement will come on May 5th. Her replacement is Dale Penn II, which many of you know is a member of our budget committee. And so he'll be working and representing us. So in your packet, you do have the full report. I won't go through any of it, but if there's any questions, I've already hit the highlights on it for us. With the short session, there really wasn't much to it, but I think the important part in that $4 million for E&D transportation, that was the second supplemental funding, and there is now over $11 million for this biennium for E&D transportation, which is a significant increase from us. Usually it's around $4 million. But still, it only meets about 30% of the estimated need based on our PSU study did a few years ago. We, next week, are engaging with OTA advocates to begin our strategies for the full 2015 session on addressing transportation funding as part of the governor's transportation initiatives, and I'll have more to report on that in subsequent meetings. So with that, I don't have any additional comments on the report unless there's any specific questions on the report.
Questions for Alan? Doesn't look like it. You were very thorough. Board subcommittee, now we go into reports. Board subcommittee reports. Citizens Advisory Committee, did you do it?
We haven't, but we're going to meet to hear about the new members. I don't know when that is, but it'll be soon.
In the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Finish the recruitment
And
of
get that,
final calls back.
yeah, get that going again. So, yeah, we're looking
Brad, I hope you
forward to
can
filling those positions.
I'm looking forward to it.
to get oriented with them a little bit. Mid-Willamette Valley Council, Commission on Transportation.
The WAC met on the first Thursday of the month, and the majority of the meeting was spent listening to short proposals on 11 projects for the Connect Oregon. They had 5 minutes to do a presentation. And then the committee did a first run at prioritizing what would go to what we would list as priorities for the chair and the vice chair of the committee to go to the area meeting. We're a sub-area of Region 2, the region meeting, okay, we're a sub-area of Region 2, and with the Connect Oregon for the area commissions, you look at the projects that are in your area, and then you go to the region meeting, and they try to figure out what projects are going to fit, which projects have priority for the limited amount of money. But it was just a preliminary look and see on what the 5 projects that we would potentially forward. I'm glad to say that our South Salem Transit Center was on everybody's list except one of the 12 people there, so I hope it remains there. So that was the majority of the meeting, and just a discussion of what we're going to do next week.
Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments did not meet. Special Transportation Fund Committee had a Polk County meeting that was canceled, so they haven't met.
Monday is our next.
Monday is our next one. The Salem area, the SCATS, Director Krebs is probably on a train sleeping now, or about ready to go to bed. He's on a Southwest train trip of some sort, so he's a train guy.
However, they didn't meet. I went.
Good, thank you.
And it was a issue-filled meeting. Because Director Krebs is the vice chair, I got to chair the first part of the meeting. And besides just doing normal things, approving minutes and having public comment, and we did have some public comment regarding the Salem River crossing. One of the big discussions is every 10 years, the U.S., the federal aid urban boundary is reviewed and modified so that when roads are built in areas, the federal government and the state and the area agree whether they're an urban area or a rural area so that the road standards are sufficient. And so there was quite a discussion on that, and it's going to come back for approval to the next meeting because there was an area that people felt needed to be added in because of the nature of the road, and that was in the Brook-like area in the northern part of the federal aid urban boundary, which is different than the urban growth boundary that we serve. We also had a discussion on the release of the draft Transportation Improvement Program and Air Quality Conformity Determination, and they're going to be shopping this around, especially at meetings that already exist. All of the work had been done on the projects prior to that. They just put it all together for approval. And there was some mention of an open house for the Salem River crossing being one of the places that they'd be going. And so somebody could check to see when they're thinking of having an open house on the Salem River crossing because people were not aware of what the date was. Let's see. We requested that ODOT and Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, so Jerry's going to get to do something. Complete the required certification of SCATs, self-certifying that they've been doing things according to federal planning. And then the other meaty part of the meeting was a discussion of the area of Dokes Ferry and the projected potential of straightening out the mess that is Dokes Ferry when it comes into Highway 22, because it's a dangerous area to come in, and there have been plans on the shelf for quite a long time to do some extension of Dokes Ferry and bringing it out at a different place on 22 so that the sight distances especially are better, because it's, if people remember it, Dokes Ferry Road comes out onto Highway 22 across from where there is a restaurant, but it's also on curves in both areas, and so it's a little bit hard to see. So it looks like that project, which has some initial funding, is going to be going through, and so Tim Potter just updated us on that. And then there was a discussion about the timeline, because the regional transportation system plan needs to be updated again in either May or June of 2015, and so the procedures on what they're going to be doing to do that. So it was a very issue-filled meeting. I know I am not doing Bob justice because he writes these all out and then sends them out. But it's been a busy month.
Thank you. And OMPOC, did you attend OMPOC, or was there an OMPOC?
No, because OMPOC only meets, like on about a quarterly basis.
I think the next one's down south someplace, yeah.
And Bob always lets me know when he needs a replacement, so.
Yeah. But
The River Crossing Oversight Committee, I don't suppose they met either. Okay,
can I just ask about that?
Certainly.
Have you heard of anything in the next month or two for an open house?
There is going to be an open house, but it is either scheduled for May or June. I have not, did not get a chance to get that confirmed this afternoon, but they did mention it, that there will be one coming up soon.
That's what they mentioned at the meeting, and nobody knew a date, and it would be really helpful if when you find out, you send out the note, because it's obviously heating up.
Yes.
we got a copy of the Trip Link Advisory Committee minutes in our packet this time, and I thank you very much. I think that's real helpful. We maybe could continue that. Board and management issues, General Manager.
The only thing I have to report is we're excited to be back at Courthouse Square. We're unpacking and trying to get back to normal operations, whatever that may be nowadays. But that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Hon. Yes, it's very nice to be back. We all attended rededication ceremonies the first part of the month at this fine facility, and we participated in tours of the building. We also attended a joint meeting yesterday with the Marion County Commissioners to finalize the Courthouse Square issues that we jointly have, and we approved our last change order, right? Last one, no more. Okay. That's it. Last one. Last change order, and it was a small one. And what we did was we thanked so many people. It was mostly a thank you, pat you on the back meeting, and very well justified. And our folks that were participating in that, in the redoing of the building really deserve a pat on the back. They did a wonderful job, and this building looks beautiful. And I guess it's now our bomb shelter. Yeah. Okay. It's the safest building in Oregon, at least, maybe in the whole United States. I don't know.
For earthquakes.
Yeah, earthquakes or anything else. Yeah. I attended the monthly work session, or we attended the monthly work session that we had, and at a chamber lunch. And at the chamber lunch, we had Randy Franke talk about the United Way, and Sue Miller talked about the Oregon Community Foundation. And Sue was a past mayor of Salem and the founder of Family Building Blocks. And both of those were very, very interesting speakers. And why don't we start down here with Brad?
Let's see. This month, I enjoyed riding the bus on occasion and meeting our operators, and I definitely appreciate when they are friendly, and there are some that are especially so, and I appreciate that. So I should probably get their names and mention that to you, because I'm sure that will then be a positive reinforcement. I enjoyed all of the meetings that you mentioned that we went to. I also enjoyed doing more outreach to citizens, such as Mr. Dakota Saunders, and being able to visit with him and find that valuable to hear the perspective of our citizens. So that was my month that I can recall.
The same meetings that you mentioned, plus MWAC, plus SCATS, and the Neighborhood Association Board. Actually, no, I didn't do the Neighborhood Association Board. I went and stayed a little bit and then left. It's been a busy month, but most of that has just been because it's Pay Equity Month. We did an Earth Day planting at Egan's, and I have a state convention coming up, so I'll be having a chance to meet with some of our congressional delegation at our state convention. So I'll try to say something good about transit too.
John?
Right. Well, as before, the same things we've all been doing. Committee meetings, STF had one scheduled that was canceled, and the next one will be on Monday. We'll bring a report for next time on that. I re-engaged with the North Lancaster Neighborhood Association last month, and they were, I talked to them primarily about the comprehensive system analysis that we're undergoing and the stakeholders meeting that we had a couple of months ago, and the things that were discussed there on the decisions that ultimately our community is going to have to make on breadth of service, and if that can be reduced in order to regain the Saturday service that everyone is so keen on. And they were interested to hear that was actually being talked about in the board, and want to reflect and talk to me again next month. So I'm looking forward to that.
Good.
Well, I've had out of, not state, but out of the area work that's drawn me away from some meetings. I'm currently sitting in on a group that's planning, it's a consortium of a couple, three nonprofits that are looking to hire more developmentally disabled, and transportation is a concern. And so I've been just listening and giving a little input to that before they don't want to go on grid yet with what they're doing, but it's kind of an exciting opportunity for the community to employ special needs folks or people that aren't employed that would like to be. And I had a chance to ride a couple of the lane buses when my wife was shopping in downtown Eugene, and I am very impressed with their express system that they have going there. I took that one, and then I took a local just to see how it's different or if it was different. And of course, the big difference is the timing of the number of buses on the routes, which is, what would be great for us, but maybe not possible. And then I sat in on a couple candidate fairs, listening to candidates for city council at different venues, one with realtors and one with a community. So that's what I've been up to.
So I went to the meetings, like you said, that all the ones we went to. This is a great month because it was really neat to come back here. And this is the first meeting with our sign, so feels like home there. And I am getting just this a lot of people continuing to say, you know, Saturdays, 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 which we all generally get hit with, but just seems like lately it's more so, especially with a lot of the economy coming back. People are definitely feeling, you know, we need that service.
Gas is going up again. Okay, is there anything else for the good of the order tonight? There's still cake over there if you haven't availed yourself of the nice cake, our celebration cake for coming back here. Please do that. There's a lot there, and they'll have to go to the drivers tomorrow if you don't eat it tonight, so. We are adjourned.
Wouldn't